there's some people that look at a mountain and say that I'm gonna be a mountain climber, right? And there's some that's like, let's just blow it up, right? So the truth of the matter is, you've got the Democratic Party, who has certainly been more responsive to our communities than the Republican Party, hands down. We can't even argue about that. And anybody that's arguing about that, sit down and shut up, because you know it's a lie, right? So that's not true, right? But the truth of the matter is to try to act like that, like the party itself does not have some deficiencies, like the party itself has not, that their losses are only attributed to the thing that makes you feel uncomfortable, and not really have an analysis that some of those losses may be the same thing that why there have been working class folks and rural folks running to Trump. My point is, and I'm not justifying that, because I do think something wrong with you support Trump at this point, right? But the truth of the matter is, there's a larger issue around the concentration of resources at the top, and the majority of people in this country not really be able to benefit from the same way that the very, very top is benefiting from. All of those millions of folks that supported Bernie Sanders, that wasn't by accident, right? Does the Democratic Party speak to them? Do you have an agenda to really be able to speak to those? So if you're not talking about that, right, it is disingenuous just to literally operate that all of those losses came from one issue that you uncomfortable with. And then my question for you is, why are you uncomfortable with it? What is it about that makes you uncomfortable with it? I'm raising this not in a context of trying to be in mass judgment. That is not to be critiqued, right? Nor not to say that there isn't some validity, that it absolutely, there is any kind of time you're using a phrase, that there are some people that are turned off from that. Absolutely, right? I agree with that. But the truth of the matter is, what the part that bothers me is to act as if the Democratic Party's only deficiency this last election was the fact that the same young folk that came to the polls and showed up so that Trump could be defeated, that this movement that they used to energize their peers was the reason why you lost. That is false. It's a flat out lie, and it's disingenuous. And just like we called out that with Trump, we got to call it out with our own folks. It's just not true. Now, is it worth, if it is that phrase, or if offensive to folks? Absolutely. Is that something that there can be dialogue and critique around? Absolutely. Why not? Right. But it is extremely problematic, and it makes me upset, right, that when we reduce it down, that was the sole reason why the Democrats lost. No, the Democrats lost because y'all had some weak candidates. The Democrats lost because you did not have an agenda in many of those places that spoke to the folks who wanted to vote. And the Democrats lost because over time that people are still, many folks are voting for the Democrats because how bad the Republicans are. That is not enough to sustain your growth in this country, right? That is not enough to sustain people continuing to show up for you. And so there has to be a deeper analysis of why the Democrats lost, right? And there has to be a deeper analysis of where they've seen their gains and where they've seen their wins. Because the truth of the matter is, when you start looking at the Cori Bushes and the Ayanna Presleys, that a lot of their wins, their unexpected wins, were actually propelled by progressive candidates and a progressive agenda. And so there has to be we've got to get beyond just kind of this politics of politeness. And politeness ain't even a word, because it's disingenuous. It ain't even being polite, right? The politics of white comfort. I'm going to call it what it is. Right. And Black folks like politics of white comfort too. So this ain't, like the politics of white comfort, and really talk about what is going to be transformative so that literally every single citizen in this country can actually benefit from the fruits of their labor in this country, right? That at the end of the day, young folks saying defund the police because they're like, stop damn killing me. Stop killing us. And so if that phrase bothers you more than the act, then that in itself says something, right? And so it is, I am so happy though that conversation is on the table, right? I do. I'm happy that it is, because we don't change until there's some discomfort. We don't. This country does not change. Like this country does just not do the right thing on its own. When? I mean, they one time it did the right thing because it was just the right thing to do, right? It's some level of discomfort that ushers it in, and so I am hoping that even in this space and in this tension and in this dialogue, that there literally can be some real conversation, so we can literally get to the root of this about what this is. So that's why even the conversation around the phrase, I'm beyond arguing with folks about that phrase. I'm like, okay, it don't work for you, fine, it don't work for you, but the point is, like, where are you and where's your stance on the topic, and what are you
right.
going to call it whatever you want to call it?
Know what it means. Now that
right.
you know
Since
what
you know what it means.
Yes.
Right.
Like,
right.
Now what? Okay.
Right. Because I'm clear that if Congress passed a bill called the Equity Safety Act and took $100 million from the police and put it in housing, I guarantee you the young folks that are with that phrase, they'll be just fine. That's what they want. So, like, literally, don't make this be about just around the phrase. The phrase, part of it is the discomfort in you, because the truth of the matter is you fundamentally have a problem of what is being asked for. And that's not what we're talking about. This ain't just about the phrase. This is literally about a value, and a value system that we need to sit with, and we need to literally debate, and we need to really take apart, and why we are where we are.
Oof, I wish I had an organ to play, because you're preaching right now, LaTosha. I have more that I want to ask you. Definitely want to ask you about this runoff, and I have some fun questions. You're always asked to solve systematic racism and voter suppression, so I figured I gotta ask her something fun. But anyway, we will have more of this wonderful sermon that is edifying all those listening with LaTosha Brown when we return. LaTosha, I've heard you talk very passionately about the New South, in terms of how you and many others are organizing around this new coalition of diversity and inclusiveness and progressiveness coming through the South. I thought it was interesting, a stat I saw, that there are 10 states where a Black candidate has never won statewide office, and
right.
5 of those states are in the South.
That's right.
What does that say about the hope for a New South, that there's still this block where we can't even get to a statewide office, and how are you hoping or helping to address that?
That's a great question. You know, I am a Black girl from the rural deep South in Alabama. You can't get no deeper in the dirt and Southern than I am. And at the end of the day, oftentimes the only thing I ever had was hope. Like, what you gonna do? Depend on the system? What you gonna do? Depend on the white folks in power? No. I mean, I'm raising that because, part of change for our people has always been driven by those who were visionaries and had hope to see and to believe what other people couldn't see. Right? That some people look at a mountain and decide that they're going to be a ditch digger. Right? There's some people that look at a mountain and say that I'm gonna be a mountain climber, right? And there's some that's like, let's just blow it up, right? And so my point is that part of even the stats as you raised, it is indicative of not the power and the potential or the people. It is indicative of how the suppression has been so great and has been embedded within the systems in these states, right? So how could that be so? You're looking at a state like Mississippi. You're looking at a state, even in Georgia. Like, why is it such? It took us 27 years to really be able to flip the state from a Republican winning the presidential election. The truth of the matter is the South has been deeply underinvested. In addition to that, you have the system has, and people like, well, what system? All of them, right? I can go from the electoral system I can go from the educational system. I can go to that it is embedded, the structural racism is embedded in the very fiber of every single system in these states that leads to people being marginalized, the votes being marginalized, not sharing in the economic wealth in those areas. And so it creates a particular challenge, but I will also say these are some of the same states that literally led to the greatest movements ever in this country, that changed the dynamics, not just for folk in the South, changed the dynamics for the entire country. When I'm talking about, domestic workers, where did they organize in Atlanta, right? When I'm talking about folks the right to vote, right, was actually at ground zero. And I think that even the labor movement, when you look at Virginia and West Virginia and the labor movement and when you look at folks, what they've contributed, the truth of the matter is, I think that where you have, it's kind of my diamond analogy, where you have the most pressure and oppression, oftentimes you have the brightest diamonds. Coal, all diamond is a piece of coal under extreme pressure that becomes a diamond. And so people in the South traditionally have literally allowed their pressure to transform them and literally be able to be on the front lines of being able to transform the South. And so what you're looking at is, I think we are on the precipice of some change because of a number of reasons. One, the South is the fastest growing region in the country. Like, for everything everybody got to say the South, y'all sure trying to move to Atlanta at the same time. I'm like, what? I'm like, don't come to Atlanta. We full now. We full. Like oh my goodness. I can't even stand to drive some of the times. Like, I was like, okay, y'all, we got to do a little bit better than this. But the bottom line is there are some elements about the South, which is why I live here, that I absolutely love. The cost of living is cheaper.
I was about to say, y'all also got that cheap land.
Listen, we like big houses down here.
I'm saying, man, I live in Los Angeles, and I tell you, bro, for what I pay at a mortgage here, I could be living in a palace up in Atlanta.
You know what I'm saying? You would be big baller, shown up shot caller down South.
Yeah. And
so really to be able to kind of the quality of life around kind of just cost, right? If you got some money, or access to resources. And so there's some things, and there's some things about the culture I love too, around the food and the people and the music and all of that. I do think that adds to the richness. And it's interesting because the South has a certain level of diversity as well, and then what you're seeing this influx of change. And so you're seeing this demographic change around who makes up the South. You're seeing a much younger population. The interesting thing is people are looking at Mitch McConnell and Lindsey Graham. They like the dinosaurs. Like, we just wait till the last comet come down, bam, and we trying to make that happen in January, right? Like they are like the last breed, Custer's last stand. Like, that's about to be over with, right? They're holding on now.
They are, and the Kentucky, like Mitch McConnell. I think he's literally. We've had a lot of bad ones. I think he's the worst politician in my lifetime. Like, this man must hate people. I don't know why he ever was an elected official, because you clearly don't like people and you clearly hate your constituents. And it's about the amassing of power. And I'm just looking at this like, Kentucky, he could have been running against a shoe. Vote for the shoe, okay? Like, I just don't vote for this dude. And I'm like, am I not understanding something? Do they not know how awful this guy really is? I don't get it. Like, I don't. And I'm not saying that the candidate that he went against was the strongest one. There was a lot of discussion about it should have been Charles Booker and all those other things. I literally do not understand what's happening in Kentucky.